Apparently, there's a bar that opened in Brooklyn recently that has caused an uproar amongst the locals. So it's a predominantly black or an ethnic. Sounds like a weird thing to say, ethnic community, but basically it's a minority community. And this white hipster-looking lady opens a bar there, and she makes some questionable decor and drink choices, which are quite possibly culturally insensitive. Like, one of the walls of the bar has holes or divots in it from removing equipment from the wall. And some people thought they were bullet holes. But apparently the bar owner ran with the idea, and that's what she's been claiming that the holes are in the wall, as some sort of joke, possibly in poor taste. And then there's a drink that she sells in there, and I think it's like wine, but it's in 40 bottles. I guess to class up or class down wine. I don't know. It's an interesting idea. Probably not very classy and not very sensitive. But so the community has, from what I can tell, two different complaints against this bar owner. One was the decor and wine options that she's gone with, and the second one was this issue of gentrification, which seems to be being brought up a lot nowadays. Gentrification being just the straight term is just improving an area, whether it's your house or your neighborhood. But a byproduct of this is the value of, not the value, but the cost of things in that area tend to rise. Obviously, because nicer things cost more money. But it's interesting that these communities complain about gentrification when, for years now, I've heard people who claim to speak for these groups and these areas say that they need more economic investment in these areas to increase, wealth and opportunity and what have you. But it now appears that when the money does get pushed into these areas, it's having an unintended side effect that these people didn't expect, which is costs rise and perhaps the ethnic makeup of these neighborhoods adjust. Mainly, their complaint is that white people are moving into these areas, in addition to costs going up. And so I find it unfortunate that these people have an idea of what will make their lives better, but then when they get it, it's not the case. And that's often the case with imagining how your society or your culture or your even your local area, how that should look economically. Because usually when the economic policies or results that you want are enacted, there's often unintended consequences. And people just don't seem to learn this. And it's not taught anywhere, so I mean, it's not surprising, and I don't blame anybody for it. The unfortunate part, though, is, and it's kind of funny, was in this video, the video that I saw that sparked my idea here. It was posted by a Facebook page or an organization called The Root, I think. I'll link it below. But in the opening, maybe 30 seconds of the video, there's some young people, young activists who are petitioning against this bar owner. When they're interviewed, they bring up the gentrification and they start saying things like, or at least the young man who was speaking says something like, I feel like our culture is being erased. I feel like, things along those lines. And of course, if you changed that dude's ethnicity to white, he would receive unending heaps of, hate and blowback because he would sound like a white nationalist. Now, I have no qualms about bashing white nationalists. But if other people say the same thing, if they make the same arguments, well, I feel that they should be held to an equal standard. I might say, it doesn't matter if you're white or black or Latino. I feel like values should be pretty universal. And unfortunately, it's the communities and ethnic groups that these people belong to that hate on white nationalists the most. And then, of course, it just turns into... Now, I understand that white nationalists want to impose policy stances to reduce the presence of non-white people here to a certain extent. I mean, maybe that's a small portion of what would be the alt-right. I think white nationalists are probably a pretty small group. And sure, they want to use the violence of the government to enact their preference for society. But these people aren't all that much different. In the video, there was it showed a town hall meeting that was being held, and there was a mob of people there, verbally attacking this woman and making pseudo possible violent threats towards her, or being very hostile at least. And so it wouldn't be a large step for these people, for the idea that if these people wielded political power, they might use it against others because of their ethnic background. And this bar owner's white, just some white hippie chick. So yeah, it's funny how identity politics has seeped into every pore and every group of politically active or vocal group nowadays. And it's unfortunate. But you can identify it pretty easily nowadays, but unfortunately, it's everybody in the US has kind of gotten the memo that, now it's useful or at least permissible to draw the lines of discourse around in-group preferences and ethnic backgrounds or socioeconomic backgrounds, so we're going to do it. Only people are unwittingly, it's sort of an unwitting and subconscious sort of deal, so that everybody practices, but nobody ever sees it, and perhaps worst of all, nobody can see it in themselves. So yeah, it's an interesting to observe. When you want increased opportunity and investment in your communities and you get it, sometimes it's not what you want. And sometimes it makes you have to improve yourselves to endure the increased costs and everything that comes with, living in a more gentrified neighborhood. It isn't as easy as just throwing money at it, and then everybody in that area is just going to be able to maintain, everything that they've been doing up until then. Because obviously, if you live in an area that has a certain set of people in a lower socioeconomic status, well, even if it's higher, it's not that way just because it's intrinsic to the ground, or it's intrinsic to how much money is in the area. It's born out of the behaviors of the people that live there and their abilities and their incomes and stuff. And so you can't just turn a poor neighborhood into a middle class one and imagine that everybody can just stay there. That That's highly simplistic thinking. And then you get people speaking like, then you get a minority speaking like white nationalists. And so that's pretty funny. All right, thanks for listening. Bye.